It's time to stop swallowing that blue pill of corporate manipulation and remove the blindfold to a world not fabricated and mind controlled by the media.
Enter a world of the twisted and deformed.
Step into the light. Discover the truth. It's time for a reality check.
Reality check. Reality check. Reality check. This isn't something you need to be afraid of.
Now, two of the most controversial views of the paranormal, as well as conspiracies, you'll ever hear. The hosts of Reality Check, Jessica Johns and Joey Mirabella.
All right, everybody. Happy Wednesday night again. Welcome to Reality Check. My name is Joey Mirabella, and I'm here, of course, with my lovely co-host, Jessica Johns.
Hello. How's everybody doing tonight? Awesome. I realize that we're
doing real well.
Yeah.
So tonight we have an awesome topic, something that was discussed a lot in the 90s and now seems to be coming back up a lot. We're talking about Kurt Cobain, the conspiracy surrounding his death. Was it a suicide? Was it a homicide? There's so much more evidence that point to this being a homicide than a suicide. We are going to dive right into that, and we do have a special guest joining us tonight, and Jess is going to intro her.
Okay, well, this is actually one of my best friends. We met because we are both diehard Britney Spears fans, but unlike me, Crystal...
Gotta bring Britney Spears up at some point.
Listen, well, yeah, of course, it's me. I have to, but anyway...
We understand.
But unlike me, Crystal also likes, all the Nirvana music. So she knows her stuff about Kurt Cobain. So, and I've come to notice that over the past few years. So I thought it'd be a good idea to bring her on and join in our Kurt Cobain discussion for tonight.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to talk about this.
We're happy to have you, Crystal. Tell us a little bit about yourself for everybody who's listening.
Well, okay, I've been a Nirvana fan, maybe almost half my life, since I was 12, I didn't really have any thoughts about his, his death or what happened or anything, because I was just told, oh, it was a suicide, blah, blah, blah. And then, I did a high school paper about him, and it just kind of made me question more things about his death. And I came to this website that was run by Tom Grant, and he's like, Courtney hired him, when it was when Kurt he had escaped from the
rehab center.
Yeah,
Tom Grant is the private investigator Courtney Love hired right at April 3rd, 1994.
Yeah, so after reading some of the stuff that he wrote and all the inconsistencies, I was just like, oh my gosh, this woman, there's more to this than we've been told, and so I just kind of always been fascinated since then about it. And I've seen documentaries, and Soaked in Bleach just came out on Netflix, obviously, and it kind of dives more. It's kind of like the live version, I guess, of the website CobainCase.com, which has recordings and all this stuff that supports his theory about Kurt being murdered. So
right, and this CobainCase.com is dozens and dozens and dozens of pages long, filled with information that Tom Grant put together, proving all these facts he has regarding Cobain's death, and everything that was not released to the general public and everything that was fabricated. He kind of clarifies.
So
yeah. So
go on.
Ahead.
I was going to say, let's go on and get into the whole topic. Whereas, let's start from the beginning. March. Let's start from March 3rd. Okay.
Yeah, March 3rd. It seems to me that
he was in Rome, or he was in Munich. I'm sorry. He was in Munich, and he was diagnosed with bronchitis, so they had to cancel the rest of the tour. And so he flew to Rome for treatment, and that's where, and then Courtney flew in.
Yeah, Courtney flies in with the nanny named Michael Dewitt, who's also referred to as Callie for some reason.
Callie. He was their
Yeah.
male live-in nanny. Right
But he
at the
was also
residence.
Courtney Love's ex-boyfriend, which I thought was really weird.
Right? So, Courtney was quoted as saying that, that day, I guess, Kurt had gone all out for me when I got there. He got me roses. He got me a piece of the Colosseum because he knows I love Roman history. I had some champagne, took a Valium. We made out. I fell asleep. The rejection he must have felt after that anticipation. I mean, for Kurt to be that Mr. Romance was pretty intense. And then it goes on to say that she woke up around 4 and she found Kurt unconscious after he ingested 50 SN pills, leaving behind a note that said, "You don't love me anymore. I'd rather die than go through a divorce." And then he overdosed on the prescription that she had, which was Rufinol with champagne.
Oh, it was
Rohypnol.
It was Rohypnol, but Rohypnol is you can get a prescription for it. It's on a dose-by-dose basis to treat insomnia. But it's also been illegally used to lessen the depression caused by the abuse of stimulants such as cocaine and meth. But it's not approved for medical use in the U.S., and you can only get a prescription for it you can't get one at all in the U.S. You can get it in like 60 other countries.
And it was purchased in England, I believe, is where they had gotten it, right? Is that what they said?
Yeah.
They had pitched the prescription was actually purchased there.
She obtained all that, like, who knows where she obtained it from.
Right. The fact is it wasn't something that they were familiar with her having or using in the United States. It was something purchased overseas. So the fact that it was in the possession in itself, why did she have this? No one knew much about it.
But even then, she said there were 50. He had taken 50 pills, but the doctor said that wasn't true at all. Anyway, like there wasn't 50 pills in his system, and even if he took 50 pills of Rohypnol, if he took 50 pills of Rohypnol, he would have been gone.
Right?
That or his body would have rejected it in taking so much. He would have vomited it. His stomach would have came up.
So that just doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, that was the first one they said was a suicide attempt, right? That was the one he went to Rome for?
Right.
Yeah,
correct.
Yes.
I think that's where, many believe that's, where she kind of planted the idea that he was suicidal, quote unquote.
Yeah, because she told everybody it was a suicide attempt.
Yeah, so she was like, basically every time she talked about Kurt up until that point, it was like, oh, everybody knows he's going to die, or blah, blah, blah. Like, she would say, weird shit. I mean, stuff like that, sorry.
Yeah.
Weird stuff like that all the time. And it's like, okay, where
does she get this from?
Yeah,
she seems to be
Yeah.
pulling out of her ass all of a sudden. She's talking about him saying he's suicidal all the time, yet no one else close to him.
Right.
His, between the Courtney Love's entertainment lawyer, Rosemary Carroll, who was also a friend of Kurt's, between... his best friend Dylan Carson, right?
Yeah, his best friend Dylan
said he wasn't suicidal at all. Never talked about it. Never was suicidal. There was nothing eminent about that. He just was literally tired of them forcing him to play his
industry,
right, and what
Courtney.
it does.
Right. So he was just, he was under a lot of pressure, but he said, but Dylan had said that he had been handling it well, but it was just a lot, but it wasn't anything that he was going to kill himself over.
No, he just wanted to quit. He wanted to quit. He wanted to play music for himself and for his passion, but didn't like. And this is what when I first had heard that Cobain had killed himself, one of the first things I learned was that song "Smells Like Teen Spirit," which is arguably one of their most popular songs. That was one of the songs that led to his suicide, just because he was falling into some mainstream category that he didn't want to be in, and he was pressured by the music industry, leading to his suicide. And I think that's a lot of what a lot of people have heard. And don't know the underlying facts behind this whole tragedy of what really ended up happening. And
So his friend Pete Clearly, he's quoted as saying, "The thing you have to remember about the talk of Kurt being suicidal is that all the talk only started when Courtney came out after the death and said Rome was a suicide attempt, and the media picked up on her examples of Kurt being suicidal. That's when all these people started saying, of course he was suicidal, just listen to his music. but that's a bunch of crap.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, he was a moody guy and got depressed quite often. That applies to a hell of a lot of people, including me, but nobody ever talked about Kurt being suicidal before he died. Nobody.
Well, he also he had that stomach problem too, and so in his lyrics sometimes like he would talk about, you know, how he wanted to die and this and that, but it was really just because, you know, he was in pain. But again, it's like
The heroin was a major part of his alleviation. Like, it helped him, you know, and it was kind of hard. It was kind of like hard for him, you know, because here he is, you know, he's labeled as a junkie and all this stuff, and you know, he doesn't want to be labeled as that. It's just like he had that underlying stomach problem that he had, you know, since he was a teenager. And he said that heroin was like the only thing that helped. And
Well, Crystal, what do you know what that stomach condition was exactly that he had? Did they ever diagnose it? Because he said for 6 years he was struggling with constant pain from this stomach condition.
He said that it was never solved. Like, they never found out what was really wrong with him, but
eventually they given him meds to alleviate the pain finally. And he mentioned that in an interview. I think it was December right before he died.
Yeah.
He's in an interview talking about how that pain is gone and he's so relieved.
Yeah.
He was fine. He was happy. He wasn't the angry lyrics about wanting to die and some of the stuff he wrote. He even mentions, you know, don't look into it's my music. It's the lyrics, you know, come on, you know.
5 months before he died was that they did that iconic performance, you know, at the New York Unplugged or whatever.
yes.
So it was like at the height of their career, and you know, Kurt seemed to be happy from all the kind of success, I guess. But then it, you know, like, of course, everybody labeled him as a moody rock star, and you know, he didn't want to be famous. But he knew he probably didn't want to be famous. He wanted to be recognized for his music, and you know, he wanted just to touch people's lives, you know, because you know, he had like a hard life himself growing up, and that was like his outlet, you know.
Right. And he mentions that the grunge, he was talking about how he wants to be more remembered. You know, if I ever wanted to see, he mentions Johnny Cash. Because he
wanted to be a singer and songwriter. He didn't want to be known as a grunge musician forever.
He wants to be. He's like, one day I want to be able to sit on stage in a chair and play acoustic guitar and sing and be appreciated for it and loved for that, you know, the way Johnny Cash is, without it being laughed at because I'm lumped into this category as a grunge rocker. And that's what he wanted. This was a man that lived for music. He was passionate about it. Everybody who knew him said he was one of the realest individuals you'd ever meet. He wasn't a mean person. You know, he was a drug addict. He was addicted to heroin, yes, and because of that, it made his suicide easier to stage. It made it easier for people to believe that he would be suicidal, just another suicidal, drug-addicted musician. And Lord knows there's plenty of those examples through our history of musicians that have overdosed and killed themselves. So it's not hard to believe that he would do it, which is why I think that it caught on so quickly that he did kill himself without people trying to look into the facts behind it. And that's how things get overlooked.
I think that was her main motive, too, just like, oh, you know, people would definitely, you know, they wouldn't think twice about it, you know, and that in that suicide note, quote unquote, that was left, you know, like it, like the suicide note was written, like it didn't even seem like it was like a goodbye Earth. It was like a goodbye to music, you know, because the way he's talking about it, it's the only the last 4 lines of that note, it says, you know, it indicates anything about suicide. Like, it says, like, I love you, Francis, go on, you know, something like that. Like,
Francis,
go on, Courtney,
his daughter.
her life is better without me, or something like that. Like, and it comes to find out, Rosemary, it
was Courtney's entertainment lawyer, and the godmother of Francis Bean.
Yeah. Go on.
Well, okay. Before we get into that, let's kind of go back. All right, or go. I guess fast forward a little bit to you know, March 26th. Okay, like when Kurt pulled out of Lollapalooza, which was a $9.5 million thing. Like,
The concert.
It's a
They
$9.5
wanted
million.
to-
They were going to make
Nirvana was
$9.5
gonna
million
headline.
contract. That was a $9.5 million contract, and he pulled out of that, which then obviously made Courtney really angry.
She was all money. This is a money-driven woman, Courtney
Right.
Love. She wanted her hands on any dollar she could get, and it was known that she was manipulative, a pathological liar, a psychopath in general, who used her. Huh?
To him, like she always talked to Kurt like he was, like a really like a vulnerable, like she always fed off that.
Like she
he
was like
such
the
a
alpha.
nice guy.
Damsel in
You know?
distress at
Yeah.
the same time. She could play both sides of that.
Yeah, and it just makes me wonder, like, why are people so afraid of Courtney Love? Like,
don't
because
know,
every
man.
time anybody threatens to sue her about it, like, she's like, it like goes hush because she probably like paid them. I don't know, like.
Well-
Anyways, go on with.
Okay, so let's go through the timeline. All right, so March 30th, Kurt and his best friend Dylan bought a shotgun.
This is a huge.
Because Kurt was afraid of intruders because there was, I guess there had been burglaries prior to that. And also backing out of costing, the band and, $9.5 million doing Lollapalooza. It was a business decision, which made a lot of people really angry. So he was also afraid of the repercussions from that.
People in the entertainment
Yeah.
industry have been known to get really crazy over money, just that quickly, that he was actually in fear of his life, that someone would come and try to kill him just because he didn't want to do the Lollapalooza tour.
Right. So then the shotgun was a 20 gauge setup for light load. He brought the shotgun. He brought the shotgun back to the house, so it'd be there when he got back from rehab. So then April 1st, he.
Well, on that shotgun note though, before, just so people know what that means, when they say a light load, that was a shotgun. It had there were 3 bullets in the gauge, and that is a shotgun that is recommended just for home protection by sellers. That is what it's for. It doesn't penetrate doors or walls or windows so that you can't accidentally hurt other people. It is intended for if there's an intruder in your house and you're at close range and you have to take them out. So it's not any kind of a violent weapon used for anything else. Not something you typically see in a suicide either, a shotgun that just...
Right.
No.
Nobody
most people are
buys
gonna
a
pick up-
shotgun to kill themselves.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to just pick up a 9mm or a handgun and shoot yourself if that's the way you're going to do it. You're not going to get a shotgun ready and position yourself. I mean, that just doesn't make any
And,
sense.
destroy your face.
Yeah.
What's the point, where dental records are the only thing. So April 1st, he's in rehab and she called Kurt's rehab center like 13 times. And then that night Kurt left rehab and also called Courtney. Then he arrived back in Seattle on Saturday morning. And then on the 2nd, Courtney had a friend plant a phony story with the Associated Press that she had overdosed on drugs and was in the hospital.
Among a lot of the phony stories she's planted,
yes.
because she was she was just a pathological liar, and there's just so many times that Tom, the private investigator, caught her in these lies, and she just tries to defend herself and talk her way out of them. And then one of the lies that got published in the press too, Jess, about the shotgun was that they said he bought it after rehab, but he bought the shotgun with Dylan
Before rehab.
right, which is significant. Because they were saying he bought it after rehab and wanted to kill himself after going to rehab, and that's not the case. He bought it prior to rehab, then checked himself into rehab. So if you're suicidal, why are you going to go to rehab?
Right.
That doesn't make any sense.
So then April 3rd is the day that she hired Tom Grant. And she did that to see who was using Kurt's credit card, but really she had his credit card canceled already and wanted to see what activities he had attempted on it.
And she said something like, if you say anything to the press,
That's
I'll
right.
sue you, or something like
If
that.
you leak, the first thing she says to him is, if you leak this to the press, I will sue the F out of you. That's what she says to him when he walks in. The first thing she says to him. That's already sketchy in itself.
Right? It's like, hello to you too, Courtney.
Yeah. That's the first thing you have to say. Then you pretty much know that you're dealing with someone that is unstable in every way possible.
Right.
So then on the 4th, she calls the police pretending to be Kurt's mother and filed a missing persons report.
And that's interesting. And on the news, what they were saying about that too was that the missing persons report was filed by Courtney, but pretending to be her mother, like Jess said. But on the news, it was said that Cobain's mother was the one who filed it because that's the information they had gotten because it was written with her information on it. And that's another fact that was misrepresented into the public, that was not filed by Kurt Cobain's mother. It was actually filed by Courtney Love pretending to be his mother. And that's huge.
So when they went looking for him, they called around. So they went, calling around looking for him. Courtney made sure to tell Tom that Kurt only stayed in the swankiest hotels, which, I mean, come on. Even then, like, that should have raised a red flag. Well, yeah, but that would have raised a red flag anyway, because, I mean, look at the guy. Like, there's no way, like, a guy, I mean, come on. He was probably a very humble dude and, would want to just stay in a normal hotel room, like Motel 6 kind of thing, nothing too swanky. So that was kind of weird.
And that's what Dylan told him, that he did mostly stay in motels that were not so nice, and he was never that kind of person. And any evidence of anything he said would prove that he's just not the kind of person that is a snobby rich person driven by money. He was blatantly, obviously, trying to avoid that kind of an image because that's not who he was. So for her to say that contradicts everything he stood for. It's just more lies that she keeps feeding the press to make her case believable.
So then April 6th, Kurt's still not been located. And a friend suggested to Courtney, like, hey, why don't you go up and check on him? But Courtney refused that. Why wouldn't you go?
Well, do you remember the one thing from April 4th, though, also that happened with Courtney? When they knew he was staying in the motel, or possibly there was because someone was using his credit card.
Yeah.
After in the days preceding his death, or that time they found the body, someone was still using his credit card.
Yeah, it was an active credit card.
Well, who was still using? Who was
I read
it?
Somewhere like in this book about him. I was like at Barnes and Noble, like trying to research this. So I read a book about him, and it said there's a $1,517 cash advance or something. A female tried to cash it in.
That's
and and then I was like, wait a minute, like I never even heard about that until like 2 days ago.
Well, we'll get into more of that in just a few minutes. If you have any thoughts on Kurt Cobain and the murder or suicide, call the hotline at 702-425-9230.
And we will be coming back shortly. We're going to be getting more into the evidence that they found in the case, the position of the shotgun, the crime scene, and all the inconsistencies in that. When we return, stay tuned. Don't go away.
It's time to flip this iceberg and expose the truth.
This is gonna be good.
Welcome back to your daily dose of reality. To share your thoughts on the truth, call the KCOR Digital Radio Network at 702-425-9230.
Are you deaf?
That's 702-425-9230. Those around the world use Skype name KCOR Radio. Tweet your thoughts anytime to KCOR at KCOR Radio using hashtag KCOR. Enter the world of live chat at KCORradio.com.
Oh, that sounds dangerous.
Once again, it's time to cross that line of deception and bring you a reality check.
They're serious. They mean what they're saying.
With your mesmerizing hosts, Jessica Johns and Joey Mirabella.
All right, welcome back to the second half of Reality Check. I'm Jessica Johns, sitting here with Joey Mirabella. On the phone, we have my fellow member of the Britney Army and Nirvana fan.
The Britney League, led by Jess and Crystal here.
The Britney League.
Team Brit.
Crystal. Joey, we're going to get back into we're going to discuss the credit card.
Yes. So there was one charge on the credit card that was significant, that led them to a motel somewhere. And when Tom wanted to go into this hotel, he talked to Courtney and said, we have proof that this might be him in this motel. Courtney says, no. I don't want Kurt to know that I'm looking for him, which was weird. This is April 4th. She says, I don't want him to know that I'm looking for him. Well, that doesn't really make any sense. Why wouldn't you want someone to look for your husband that you're worried about and you're concerned about? You have a private investigator. Isn't that the whole reason that you hired a private investigator? And then so he doesn't look into it, but then she talks to him a little bit later and says she actually called the hotel room anyways and spoke to the person in the room, and it wasn't Kurt that was staying in the room. So why would she say, I don't want him to know that I'm looking for him, but then go ahead and call the room anyways herself, or say that she did at least? Why is she doing these suspicious things? And that will lead us to continue on to April 6th, as Jess was going through the timeline here.
Okay, so April 6th, Kurt's still not been located. All right, and then a friend suggested to Courtney that she go up and check on him, but Courtney refused. And then that night, she ends up getting arrested for drug paraphernalia and then like taken to the hospital for like a overdose or something.
That's when she also said she had business to take care of, so she couldn't.
Right.
Right.
But she didn't have business in
Rosemary clarifies
in
later
LA.
on she had no business.
Right.
None.
So then the next night, or that night, she spends the night in jail. The next night she's released and Kurt still hasn't been found. So what does she do? She puts in an order for a security system to be installed inside the greenhouse that nobody ever goes in or, hangs out at or anything. Like nobody ever uses.
Outside the greenhouse or inside?
No, in the greenhouse. To put a security system in, and which why would you? That's a very specific kind of place. But there's a lot like in between all of that, because Tom and Dylan both went to the house looking for Kurt and didn't find him.
Never found him.
Because, they never even checked the greenhouse, even though Courtney told him to check the greenhouse.
And Dylan knew about the greenhouse and didn't really
say anything.
Think much about it. And then you have Callie, the one that's been staying there. Again, their live-in nanny, also a heroin addict as well. He had been at the house multiple times, and he even told Courtney on Saturday morning, April 2nd, that he was there and that he had seen Kurt there that morning. But Courtney doesn't tell Tom, the private investigator, this information. She withholds it, and then he ends up finding out from Callie that Callie had seen Kurt that morning, Saturday morning, April 2nd. Which, another thing, why would she hide that from him if she's hiring someone because she can't find him? Why wouldn't she say that someone had seen him and she had that information?
Right.
Like, she doesn't want too much information to get out there. She's hiding something. It's clear that she was hiding something.
Right.
Right.
And even then, Dylan even said if he told Tom that, of course, Kurt wasn't suicidal, and even if he was, he wouldn't take him to go purchase a shotgun.
Yeah,
right.
His best friend would not take a suicidal friend to go to a gun store to purchase a shotgun. That just doesn't make any sense. You wouldn't really be too great a friend. Now, then again, he turns out to not be as good a friend anyways when you start to get a little more into where this went from there. Well, I want everybody to keep in mind, too, that these are all heroin addicts we're talking about.
Yes.
Once Kurt Cobain was missing, Courtney was the one that Dylan was dependent on and that Callie was dependent on for their drug fix. And as history shows, addicts, when they're that dependent on something, will do anything possible to get their hands on the drugs. And that includes deceiving the people that they love most. I mean, history will show you that you will do anything to get your fix. And that is what happens here. And that is why these two start to cooperate with Courtney in this whole situation.
So April 8th. April 8th, Kurt's found. Okay, Kurt's found on April 8th. Kurt's found by those two electricians installing that security system.
Right, they see a body through the door that's locked, the locked door. And then there's nothing barricading the door, it's just locked, and the back balcony doors.
It's not even a deadbolt lock.
No, it's just locked.
So somebody could have on their way out locked the door and
or left through the balcony doors that were totally unlocked.
Right, because yes, you're right, they were unlocked.
Yeah. They could have climbed down from a rope or jumped down. I mean, I don't know how high the balcony was, but there was a way to escape. And after staging someone's suicide, and then one of the other things I meant to say was there was a letter that was found in the house that Callie had written supposedly.
Yes, and The note was found on like the second time they searched the house, because it wasn't there the night before, they said.
Right. So you're right. Yeah.
I think
Dylan's.
that she planted that to for him to see, because the note said something like, "I can't believe you would."
I actually have the note. I'm gonna read it for everybody. This is the actual note that they found the day after they came back to the house that wasn't there. And this note is just sitting on the staircase going upstairs in the Cobain residence at the lake house. So the note reads this, and it sounds so fabricated when you read the way it's written. It says, "Kurt, I can't believe you managed to be in this house without me noticing. You're an effing asshole for not calling Courtney and at least letting her know you're okay. She's in a lot of pain, Kurt, and this morning she had another accident, in quotes, and now she's in the hospital again. She's your wife and she loves you, and you have a child together. Get it together to at least tell her you're okay, or she's going to die. It's not fair, man. Do something now." That's the end of that note. It sounds a lot like it's all about Courtney, and it sounds a lot like she had something to do with that note being written. It also doesn't sound natural at all.
Not at all.
So let's talk about the way that Kurt was found.
Okay.
Okay.
Jump into that one.
Yes. Okay.
Laying down, shotgun in his hands.
Okay. So shotgun in his hands, but shotgun is upside down, and he's got that death grip, I guess is what the way they described it.
Right. When someone dies, their hand stays frozen in the way that it was when they died.
So the shotgun shell, but the shotgun shell was found on the opposite side of the room that they thought it would have been.
Right. So
basically, should have been.
So the shotgun is upside down when they find it in his hands. So he had the shotgun upside down, holding it, pointed to his head, saying that's how he shot himself, released the trigger. The shell would have launched out, going to the opposite side of where they found it. And that makes no sense. There's no possible way that the shell could have bounced out and went to the other side of his body. There was nothing in the room found that it could have ricocheted off of. There was no evidence that would have said anything that would prove that the shell should have been on the other side of his body. So that already is an inconsistency.
Well, also, and the drugs in his system.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well,
that's heroin.
There was so much heroin in his system that it would have just knocked him out immediately. So how would he have been able to shoot himself?
3 times the lethal dose
Right.
he injected himself with. So they said 1.52 micrograms per liter. That's 3 times the lethal dose. And then they try to argue that, well, he had a high tolerance, but the lethal dose, it will kill anyone. It doesn't matter. So if you're doing 3 times the lethal dose, you remember this is going right into your bloodstream. It's not like taking a pill or a narcotic in that sense. This is going right to your heart and your brain as soon as you inject it into your body. You don't have time to get a shotgun ready and position it. There's no way. There's no way he would have. They said that he would have been unconscious almost immediately.
So yeah. So even so there was no way after he injected himself with heroin. Okay, got his wallet out, and then put the heroin back, and then positioned the shotgun.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, and then positioned the shotgun.
The heroin was neatly placed back in the box.
Neatly placed
next to. I mean, it's not funny, but at the same time,
with the suicide note there, the quote suicide note.
His ID sitting nicely next to the body that they said, but what you found out was a police officer had taken his ID out of the wallet when they found the body, put it down so they could take a picture of it with the body for identity purposes, and then the media tries to spin it saying that Cobain had left the ID out, saying that he wanted his body to be identified for purposes, and that's not what happened. That he didn't leave his ID out.
Now, through everything going on through this whole private investigation, okay, Tom Grant is talking to Courtney Love's entertainment attorney, Rosemary Carroll. Okay, so going back to April 6th, Courtney visits Rosemary's house and left her backpack. And then after a few days, she opened it and she found 2 notes in there that caught her attention. Hey, Crystal, what did that first note say?
Hold on.
It said, the first note said, "Get arrested."
Yeah,
Get arrested.
like it was like she was planning to,
She was planning it the whole time because, she was planning to get herself arrested because of that alibi she was trying to plant. Because a few hours after leaving the backpack at Rosemary's, it hit the news that Courtney had been arrested on drug charges.
Yeah.
Now, the second note, you know exactly what that second note was. Tell us about what that second note was. It was a piece of paper.
Hold on a second. I was trying to look for it.
Keep in mind, we're dealing with a woman here who is extremely, extremely intelligent. Courtney Love was not stupid by any means. I mean, she was a nut job addict and a psychopath, but she was not dumb. You know, she knew exactly what she was doing and said everything that she lied about with total, complete confidence, no matter how false it was. And that's what a pathological liar has the ability to do, is manipulate people through those lies by sounding so convincing. You know, why would this woman be lying? This was her husband. Why would she do that to her daughter?
Well, money. So the second, that second note that she found was a handwriting practice sheet. So, and the lettering on it looked similar to the final 4 lines on Kurt's suicide note. Then
and we have those lines. Did you have them written?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, anyways, it doesn't make
matter.
a difference. The final 4 lines on the note look like they were totally written differently than everything else that had been preceding it in the note. That the only lines that kind of hinted that it was like a suicide possibly were the last 4 lines, and they're written and they're slanted. They don't fit in with the rest of it. They've had professional handwriting analysts examine this note and say it looks like this part of the note was not written by Cobain. It looks like someone tried to fabricate his handwriting. And
right.
And as Jess said, they find a second note, which was a sheet with traced letters over and over and over again all over the place, as if someone was trying to practice writing like him and tracing his handwriting to continue the note to make it look as though it was a suicide note.
So then an article comes out in Us Weekly that had a quote from the said suicide note that said, "I can't live like this anymore," or live like that anymore. But at the time, the only people with that note were the police, Courtney, and the private investigator. So then the conspiracy, I guess, is that that Courtney Love forged that note while she was in LA, and she had it sent to Seattle and planted at the scene, which if you remember when Tom and Dylan went to the house, Tom's in the car, Dylan goes to knock on the door, and he's there for a while.
Like 5 minutes, they said.
Yeah, so Tom's like, if there was nobody home, what took him so long to get back? Well, that means he was planting that note, and he'd known that he'd already died, because when the news came out that Kurt Cobain was dead, he said that Dylan had no reaction at all. Like,
yeah,
they already knew.
His best friend has no reaction at all to finding out the news that your best friend died.
So
doesn't make sense. Doesn't sync up.
The vigil, like where he passed away, and Courtney is at the vigil saying, she's calling him an a-hole and saying all this stuff. While it's kind of like she was like interjecting her own thoughts, like having a conversation with him, and she was like, and she was kind of having the fans chime in, say, "I hate you," like stuff like, because, it was a heartbreaking thing for a lot of Nirvana fans that he committed, or he was, whenever he died. And
but she gained it. It seemed like they all just, in the end, grew sympathy for her.
She was good at that,
right?
Yeah, she played that card.
She did. But okay, so the motive. All right. Now, Courtney, she kept talking about how Kurt wanted a divorce. They were in the process of getting a divorce. They were talking to someone about it. She even said she wanted to hire the most ridiculously aggressive divorce lawyer or something like that. That was proven. So they're talking about divorce. So if Courtney, because they had a prenup, so if Courtney and Kurt had been divorced, she wouldn't have gotten very much money at all. So he had to die so that she could get more. Yes. Okay.
She also had the rights to Nirvana too.
Right. So yes, she got the rights to Nirvana's music, like you said. As of 2014, Kurt Cobain's estate was worth more than $450 million. $450 million freaking dollars.
And she sold that off.
She sold that off.
Yep. So she would have ended up with a small settlement had a divorce went through in a prenup that they had, right? She would have, but instead she knows that she's going to, lose all the money. Again, this is a money-driven woman. That's all she cares about. And she knew and another issue that she actually mentions a couple times is she's jealous of the fact that he was much more famous and loved than she was. That was another issue she had.
Yeah.
Well, she got drunk at her shows and passed out. Like, I will tell you real quick, Music Midtown, I can't remember what year I went, but it was like, no, Jessica Simpson was playing, and Foo Fighters and The Offspring and Big Boy, and we went the very last day, and everybody, and Courtney Love was set to perform on the 99X stage the very last day, and I watched hundreds of thousands of people walk away from her stage because she was puking on herself as she was trying to sing songs.
What an icon right there for everyone.
Yeah.
Can't even perform for her fans.
Right. So that's probably why Kurt was more famous.
Yeah. Not even close to having the type of following that Nirvana had. And and she was threatened by that. And she knew that, if she was out of the picture from his life, she wasn't really going to make the kind of money he was going to get. She wasn't going to ever be on his level of fame. And he didn't want the fame. The irony is that he didn't want the fame and she wanted it, so she gets rid of him to get all the money, which is a hell of a lot, as Jess was mentioning. Again, money is the motivation behind everything, the root of all evil. And they have the entertainment industry totally behind this. This is why this information can stay this way. Because they have the entertainment lawyers, and this is an industry where they're all money driven, and they're protecting their own interest in this. And they're all making money off of this as well. So they don't want people to know the truths behind this. They can continue to fabricate it. So that's what drives these people to keep this kind of information from leaking.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Courtney,
wouldn't you think if she sued, like, I think that she would always say that she's going to sue, but she never did sue, and I think she never sued anybody for people trying to say that she killed him. Because she what was I going to say? I just lost my train of thought, guys.
Well, with a cross-examination of the evidence in a court case, a lot of stuff would have come out proving that she had staged this, and that's why she didn't really want to take it to court.
She had the rights to Nirvana's music, right? So in 2006, for upwards of $50 million, at the time, she was the primary beneficiary of Kurt Cobain's estate, which included 98% of the publishing rights to Nirvana's music. She also had a deal with Converse, since Kurt wore that was like his signature shoes. He was constantly wearing Converse. So she made a deal with Converse and allowed them to have like a limited edition pair of shoes with Nirvana lyrics written on them. So she made money off that. She also made money off his likeness.
She's pretty much being funded by everything that's left over.
Right.
From it. And none of this would have happened had she not killed him. Realistically, I mean, we know that the evidence it works in her favor as of right now, just because of what they determined to be the actual causes. But we know, based on what we've been discussing and all the evidence that's out there, based on what the PI found, Tom.
Do you think Dylan killed him?
I think I'm more geared towards Callie being the one who did it.
But I think he had something. But he had to have something to do with it. If he's not going to be, again,
he knew he was dead for sure.
Oh yeah, he knew the whole time. He knew. They all knew. Everybody knew.
Well, remember when we were just talking about the note that Callie left on the stairs that was clearly fabricated, where he says, "I can't believe you were living in the house and I didn't know it." But he said on the second, he told Courtney that he knew Kurt was there that morning. The second, so how does it doesn't make any sense that he would say in a letter after that he didn't know that Kurt was staying there. It's just another one of those facts that doesn't sync up. So I feel as though it wasn't Courtney who actually did it herself.
No,
but she was the puppeteer,
right?
Because she was the one and she had the drugs to keep them as her little servants,
right?
To do what she wanted.
Because Kurt was Dylan's supplier. So after he's gone, Courtney's got all the drugs because she's got all got the money,
right? And that's why they start to do whatever she wants. Otherwise, she cuts off their supply, which they weren't paying for the drugs. They were just getting it for free from them.
Right.
So you cut off the supply to an addict, when they're going through withdrawal, or they're going to do anything they can to get that fixed, like we mentioned earlier. And that is why, there's reasonable evidence that supports the fact that it could have been somewhere between Callie and Dylan had something to do with covering it up.
But they also mentioned in the documentary, if you want to get away with murder, kill a junkie.
Yeah, right? Because it's believable that a junkie, because they say people don't care about junkies. And that's a sad fact, and it makes it easier to believe that they would kill themselves. And that's what we're dealing with.
Right.
Pam Anderson roast.
Pam Anderson roast?
Yeah. You remember seeing Courtney Love on the Pam Anderson roast? She kept, the whole time was claiming that she was completely sober.
Oh, oh my
remember.
gosh. I know exactly what you're talking about. I just remember that. I remember watching that.
So
Yeah.
she's like, she was a mess like the whole time. And then, and all she could talk about. And then it was all about the publicity. Remember, like in that part of the documentary, it was all about the publicity and her album was coming out?
Yeah, Live Through This came out, and it was like one of their best-selling albums, Hole's albums. Like,
Right, because she was like, no publicity. Yeah, because publicity is publicity, whether it's good or bad. It's publicity. Your name's
good or bad publicity, right, Courtney?
Either way, you get your name out there a little more, and that's what she was about. She was an attention whore.
Yeah. So I mean, there's just it's like all evidence.
It's frustrating.
I saw her on this talk show. She had like this little meltdown. Like, she started dancing on this like talk show table. I forgot who. I think it was like I don't know what's the old guy. Not Conan O'Brien, but the other guy with the glasses.
Letterman?
Larry King?
Or Larry King.
She was on top of the table, like, taking off her, like, simulating, like, taking off her top. And I'm like, what is she doing? Like, what is going on with this girl? Like,
she's just absolutely nuts. I mean, and she even admitted multiple times to being a liar. She admits that she lied openly about just in general. So when someone admits that and they're proud of it, they could lie about anything.
Yeah, what does it make you think about what she's saying, like...
But you know what's funny is that people still will believe what she says because they just wanted to. I mean, 60 fans, they had seen at least 60 or more people after Cobain had killed himself had committed suicide that were diehard fans of Nirvana.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Over 60 people with shotguns, they killed themselves. A girl locked herself in a room, I think it was in Turkey, was playing his music and blows her head off. This is what happens. This is what it led to. And
I mean, when I hate to bring it up, but when Britney went through her crazy phase in 2007, I had my tattoo planned out, but I wasn't going to kill myself over it.
God forbid if something happens to Britney, Jess, I'm going to lock you up somewhere so that you're safe. Padded room with padded walls, okay? Knock on wood, I know.
Knock on wood, but
God forbid.
Thank you so much, Crystal, for joining us.
Yeah, you've been great. We appreciate having you.
Thank you so much for having me. I very much appreciate it.
We're very impressed with all the hard work and research and promoting of the show that you did. We thank you for supporting us all the time.
And thank everybody else for tuning in tonight. We loved having you. Join us again next week, 9 p.m. Wednesday night for more Reality Check. I'm Joey Mirabella.
I'm Jessica Johns.
See you next week.
Stand by. You've been listening to Reality Check, the one show that doesn't prepackage and spin the truth as propaganda. Hosted by Jessica Johns and Joey Mirabella.
I see incredible potential here.
Live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. For more information on the show, the hosts, as well as social media links to Reality Check, please visit their page on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
We know that they provide strong motivation for decision-making teenagers.
It's time to stop letting someone else control your mind and explore the truth hidden within. Reality Check. Reality Check. Reality Check. Reality Check. Reality Check. Reality Check. This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital